have completed decrypting data from the enemy frigate we captured in the Karak system. It appears to be an Imperial broadcast. In order to stay clear of these outposts, our course will take us into a turbulent asteroid field and through the heart of a nebula.
Hyperspace jump successful.
We haven't cleared the asteroid field. Prepare for collisions. Incoming asteroids must be destroyed before they impact with the mothership. Concentrate fire within this collision envelope.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Homeworld Remastered.
Research Division reports it is now equipped for super capital ship drive technology. We advise commencing research immediately.
Ooh, you don't need to tell me that twice, Command, because super heavy capital ship chassis gets me destroyers, and I'm gonna definitely want some of those. What I'm doing here is I'm docking all of my small ships within the mothership. I have tried in previous goes at this mission to use smaller ships to try and take on the asteroids. It's really not worth it. You have to micromanage to a really quite hideous degree, and the other side is these small ships just can't take a hit off these things, and they don't have enough firepower to really make much of a difference. So just leave it in the hands of all my ion array frigates, etc., that I stole off the I acquired off the Tyrannic Raiders, and I think we're going to be okay, along with the destroyer I acquired off the Taidan. So in reality, this mission really isn't anything exciting. You literally just point your big beamy fleet at whatever asteroid looks at you funny and just vaporize it, and that's pretty much all there is to this mission. There's a similar mission a little bit later in the game, but that has a tiny bit more to it. I think that this mission really, it's a little bit more of a quote-unquote time-off mission, just because the last couple of missions have been fairly hectic. You obviously had the attack on Karak in the third mission, and now it's basically a little bit of relaxation time. You're not going to come across any enemies aside from the asteroids, and there's no real it's not really a threat to your mothership. I haven't tried this. I probably should actually, and just literally leaving my repair corvettes and my salvage frigates next to the mothership, healing it, and just letting everything hit the mothership. I think that the mothership will die if you do that, but it may end up being fairly close. So while we wait for this mission to end, essentially, because that's all basically this mission ends up doing, I just thought I'd chat a little bit about this upcoming weekend. I realise that's not going to have a lot of longevity for this video, but oh well. You guys who are watching are lucky enough to watch on day one. I think lucky is the word. This coming weekend I will be doing some Twitch streaming again. There will be Star Trek Adversaries going on. I also may introduce a little bit of Star Trek Online into it. I do have a video that I've been thinking about doing, sort of revisiting Star Trek Online. It's been, I think, over a year, or at least it was over a year since I logged into the game. There's obviously been quite a few changes, but to be honest, when I did log in, the changes that were in the game, I think, made it an awful lot easier, and if anything detracted a little bit from the end game. But I have heard that the single player campaign now is exceedingly good, and I think I'm about three major storylines behind on that, so that could potentially be some content as well that I can do on that front. I do intend to keep up with the Adversaries content. Notwithstanding which, I really like the game, but I think the other side of it is that, spoiler alert, I am trying to aim to become a partner as far as the game goes, or at least a content partner. And so I do have to keep up the content on that, and I don't object to that because I really enjoy myself and I'm discovering something new every single time I play the game. So if you can join me on stream, I'll be streaming tomorrow night at 7 PM UK time. 7 PM, maybe 8 PM. I think 8 PM is probably more likely because I have to do the 9 to 5 shtick. But 8 PM UK time on Friday the 5th of October, and I will also be streaming at 7 PM UK time on Sunday the 7th. And what I'm going to aim to do, I can't promise this, but my aim is to be streaming every Monday and every Wednesday, because they're 2 days that I actually get off. Well, not get off work, but they're 2 days that I have sort of set aside for me time, and I don't mind doing a couple of hours of streaming because I really enjoy it. So we're about halfway through the asteroid field here. There's not really too much that's endangered anyone. I'm not in danger of losing any ships, etc. But in reality, as I said, this mission's a little bit of downtime, not just after the last 2 missions, but because of what's coming up. For those of you who are very familiar with this game, you will know what's coming up, and in fact I think that the next 2 missions after this one are basically what turned this game from one where the story's okay, etc., and they're the 2 missions that I think most people remember from this game. Although having said that, though, this game has some advantages that, whereas in some other strategy games they'll have like 50 or 60 levels and really maybe one of them will stand out, I'd say in Homeworld at least half the missions stand out as being fairly unique and having some kind of memorable thing in them. Obviously mission 3 was the destruction of Karak happening. Mission 5 was our first encounter with sort of a really heavy fleet, although that was kind of a default episode. 7 and 8 I think everyone remembers, and other missions going forward I think they're going to remember. In addition, the one thing I did manage to learn, at least from when I was doing test runs of Mission 7 and Mission 8, is not to put my ships on passive, because I think I mentioned this in the last video, is that passive is the worst thing ever, and your ships are set to it by default, and you don't want that to happen because your ships won't be aggressive and they'll just get shot down and it's terrible. You don't want it to happen. So I've come a little bit far from the mothership here. I don't really think that that's a great idea because I'm sort of charging headlong into the asteroid field. That doesn't seem to be the most clever thing that you can potentially do at this point, but then again, no one ever accused me of being clever. The one thing, of course, that I'm extremely disappointed at in this mission is the fact that I can't salvage anything. It's like you'd think I'd just salvage something, but no. The game has denied me the option to salvage anything in this mission, and therefore I'm extremely upset about that. And so my only option really is to just ramble on for 15 minutes. So I do apologise to those of you who want to see like hardcore pounding action in. That sounded really rude, never mind. Want to see heart-stopping action in these games. This is not the level for you. One thing I did want to discuss on this video was a little bit of how I see Homeworld Remastered compared to the original Homeworld. I have to say that my initial thoughts, and I've played through about half the game now, so my initial thoughts were the game is a lot more frustrating originally than the original Homeworld. I feel like some of the balancing that's been done has been, or at least before I downloaded the player built patch, I have a feeling that some of the importing that's gone on into Homeworld, the Homeworld 2 engine, and some of the balancing issues that have been done have made several of the single player campaigns way more difficult than they were in the original game. The big example of which would be the Karak mission at the beginning, where we end up with an absolutely ridiculous we ended up with that absolutely ridiculous amount of assault frigates there. And in fact, the first time I played through the mission, that was almost impossible because the cryo trays hadn't been rebalanced, and because of that they just blew up whenever an assault frigate sneezed at them. So it almost made that mission impossible, and that's also something that came with the sliding scaling difficulty, which I've always been a sort of, how can I put it, I've always been slightly against it. I think the first time I came across it was in Oblivion, if I remember correctly. I think that was one of the reasoning, and the way it works in Oblivion is the more leveled your character is, the more leveled the opponents that you come against are in the game, and because of that it feels like you're getting punished for doing well. Now obviously it was a little bit of a mechanic in Oblivion, or at least in some RPGs. It's a mechanic to stop you power leveling and literally just taking the short path to leveling, and therefore becoming powerful enough to just curb stomp the game. And I can understand why it's done, but I don't like the idea of basically punishing someone for playing the game well. And I feel like I obviously did well in the first couple of missions to steal all those corvettes, but because of that, the third mission got to a point where it was almost unbeatable. I got shot up, and I think my fleet was in a worse state coming out of mission 3 than it was in mission 2. And it's actually put, and as far as a load of you are going to realise, I'm a huge fan of using your enemy's resources against you in strategy games, and if I'm going to get seriously punished for that, that takes a huge amount away from what the original Homeworld experience was for me, which was literally just stealing everything that wasn't nailed down, building an utterly enormous death fleet, and just, you know, yes, there was strategy involved, but there was also the ability to just have this massive fleet at my disposal, which I thought was really cool. And now I'm at the point that if I do build, I can still do that. I can still steal everything and build a massive death fleet and feel incredibly powerful. But if I do that, and I'm on a protection mission, are there just going to be so many enemies spawning that I can't possibly win the mission? And if it comes down to that, I'm not a fan of that at all. Now, I do have a fan-loaded patch download, which does give me the ability to turn that off. I've chosen not to for the moment because, number one, I do enjoy a challenge, but, you know, in the words of a certain Simpson, I enjoy a challenge, but one that I can do. So I do reserve the right that if the game, you know, if the game gets to a point where, because of how much how well I've done, the game makes itself unbeatable, then I will reserve the right to use that. But I don't intend to use that because obviously I want to give you guys the experience of how the game is supposed to be played, and not how, you know, not what I've had to do in order to make the game playable. Because if you have to mod and this is something that I always feel like some game developers get seriously wrong, especially when they build modding into their games. They tend to concentrate a lot on the mods and maybe not build that good of an experience in the first place, just basically thinking, well, if it's bad, the players can mod it out. Yeah, that's not the player's job. It's like the job of the game designer is to make a solid and good game in the first place, and then if there's modding on top of it, then that's just gravy on the meat, as it were. You can tell I'm northern, can't you? Whereas if the idea is we're just going to produce a flat ground for someone to work on, then you're not producing a game, are you? And in fact, I think that with Homeworld Remastered, the spirit of the game's there, but I feel like some of the balancing's a little bit off. And while I do find it enjoyable, I've certainly found it a bit more frustrating than the first game. But having said that, though, as I've started to play the game and get used to it, I feel like everything's got an awful lot smoother. So for the moment, I'm happy with where everything is, and we'll just see how it goes. I still intend to keep up my stealing strategy, and we'll see how things develop from there.
We've cleared the field. Detecting incoming Bentusi vessel from the clearing ahead.
Local resources.
Greetings. We have come to trade.
New research available. New frigates
This is a dangerous and unpredictable region. Can you give us information that will guide us through the nebula?
We hear nothing there. Even the Taidan fear the great nebula. No one returns.
Well, that bodes well for us, doesn't it? Well, I guess we're going to have to go in there and see what they're worried about, but what I have done, you'll notice I've retired all of my attack bombers, and I have built 10 of these. This is what we bought off the Bentusi. These are drone frigates, and what these things are is unbelievably good against strike craft. And those of you who are familiar with the next couple of missions know that we are going to be going up against a lot of strike craft, and these things tear strike craft to pieces. I think this is a change from the first game. I don't remember building, I think, any of these in the first game, but as I said, things change between this and Remastered, and drone frigates are definitely the way I want to be going in this. So with the fact that fighters have a lot less value, then drone frigates is where I want to be. I've also maxed out pretty much on salvage corvettes and heavy corvettes, and I'm going to leave myself with a few resources just to go into that mission with, just in case things go a little bit sideways, which of course they will, because it's me. Anyway, that's mission 6, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.